and feels like it's been forever since I did one of these, and I really, really missed you guys. So I'm really, really glad to be back. 2020, the end of 2020 was absolutely batshit insane for me. I don't know if it was for you guys, but for me, my 9 to 5, we went into peak season at work, then on top of holiday stress, and on top of regular stress, and on top of pandemic stress, I kind of just lost my mind for December, and I really didn't create anything. I didn't record any videos, I didn't do any writing, and I kind of felt like shit afterward. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of felt terrible that I wasn't here creating content. And it doesn't matter if it's like I have this, obligation to you guys to put out content. I just genuinely love putting out comic content, and not being able to do so because I was either too depressed or too burnt out or too drained. It really, really made me sad. So it is 2021. We are back. And I figured, I know it's a little late, but why not talk about some of my favorite things that I read in 2020? And I got quite a lot here today to talk about. So let's dive into all of my favorite things of 2020. Now, 2020 was a really, really weird year. Not just because we were in a pandemic and we were put on lockdown, but it was just a weird year for comics in general. I guess because of the lockdown. Now, if you were like me and you were isolated, you were alone, you kind of filled that void with comics, and that's exactly what I did. So with this list, my best of 2020, if we want to call it that, it isn't necessarily the best books that came out in 2020, although there are a couple new issues on here. It's mostly just books that I fell in love with during 2020 because, like I said, during isolation, it gave me a lot of time to get through my back stack and a lot of time to get through my bookshelves, which are crowded with books, but I've only read about half of what's on here. So I took a lot of time doing that, and I really did find myself falling in love with so many wonderful books and so many wonderful titles. And I know a lot of them are titles that I have previously talked about on this channel, and I kind of felt like I was cheating, but you know what? That's kind of what happens when you're a YouTube content creator. You usually end up overlapping on stuff because I'm always telling you guys what I'm reading, so I guess, at the end of it all, there is going to be a little bit of wrap up. But enough about me rambling, let's talk about the comics. So ironically enough, Heartstopper is the only book that I did not talk about on my channel, and it ended up being my favorite thing that I read this year. I mean, everything was my favorite thing that I read this year, but Heartstopper really did have a special place in my heart. So Heartstopper is an original graphic novel that was actually a series of webcomics before it was ever published and printed and compiled into a cute little book. Which, by the way, can we just talk about how this book is literally my aesthetic because it's got the teal, it's got the bubblegum pink. This is a book that literally just screams Mars, that comic girl, so thank you for that. But Heartstopper tells the tale of two boys literally falling in love during their formative high school years. And I am on record for saying that I do not like queer stories that are just about coming out. And while Heartstopper is a lot about coming out, in fact, one of the main characters decides to discover that, he is actually bisexual and comes to terms with that and realizes what it is to be bisexual. And that's amazing. And I love him for that because as the bisexual YouTuber, I just really, really appreciate that. But there's something special about this book. There's something very special about these two characters and the way that they come together and the way that they fall in love. And it feels very real. All of their conversations feels like conversations that I would have had with my high school sweetheart or with my crush or just my friends in general. And that's what I really like about Heartstopper. There really is just some sort of magic to it. It is a book that makes me ooey gooey mushy cry. I'm not kidding. I cried the entire way through this book, but it wasn't sad tears. It was happy tears. And it's just, I keep saying it's magical, but that's the way that Heartstopper made me feel. Now, I was lucky enough to be able to read both Heartstopper Volume 1 and Volume 2, and Volume 3 and 4 are on the way, so if you want queer content, if you just want some very good, wholesome feeling books, and I feel like that was a trend this year, was I read a lot of really great romantic, feel-good, wholesome books, both with graphic novels, comics, and manga. I guess maybe to fill the void of being in isolation, but Heartstopper is just a wonderful book from start to finish. And I believe that the webcomic is still available for you to check out. So if you're interested in that, definitely go and read it. So this next book, I almost did not put on this list, but then as a last minute addition, as I was setting up all of my equipment to film, I decided, you know, I kept peeking into my brain and it kept kind of jabbing at me. And I was like, you know what, I guess I got to talk about it. And that is Batgirl, the Stephanie Brown collection. I have had this book sitting on my shelf for a literal year, and because of lockdown, I was finally able to read it. I had talked about it previously in one of my other comic book wrap-up videos. But the reason why the Stephanie Brown Batgirl collection I feel like is so special to me and gets itself onto my 2020 reading list is because it feels like in the DC Comics universe, because I have been in comics so long, I feel like there's not a lot of characters that surprise me anymore. I feel like with DC Comics, I kind of know everybody. I know everybody's histories, at least the ones that I'm interested in. And Stephanie Brown is like that one character that kind of always pushed that line for me, but I never actually checked out. I would see her pop up in stories here and there. I definitely checked her out in Batman Eternal when she had her revamp of Spoiler, but I never really read any of her Batgirl stuff. And this book had me engrossed from beginning to end. And it is a big, chunky boy. Like, compared to most comics that I read, this is a big boy. So the fact that I was able to read it in one sitting is absolutely surprising. And the fact that I was able to fall in love with this book the way that I did, it really did surprise me, because Stephanie Brown comes off as one of those sweet girl next door, and she really is not. She's actually a bad bitch, and I kind of love her, and I would like to be best friends with her. So I'm really excited. I'm definitely going to be checking out the Stephanie Brown Collection Volume 2. I'm definitely going to be checking out some of her old Spoiler stuff and some of her old Robin stuff, because can we talk about that? Can we talk about how Stephanie Brown is the only character in the Batman universe to assume the title of Batgirl, Robin, and her own title Spoiler? I think Stephanie Brown needs to become the next Batman. Yeah, I've decided she needs to be the next Batman. So I've established other places, and I'll talk about that at the end because there's a really great announcement that I can't wait to share with you guys. I announced that around December, I somehow become Star Wars trash. At this point, it's routine. You know, Disney and Marvel were teasing me with movies and comic books, and then we had The Mandalorian, and I just always become Star Wars trash. And at this point, I've kind of accepted it as an important phase of my life. And with that Star Wars trash, I kind of, you know, double dipped a little bit. There are two titles on this list that are kind of similar, kind of not similar, but I'm gonna kind of lump them together, you know, because they filled that Star Wars trash void in my heart. And one of these titles you'll be very familiar with if you've watched any videos on my channel. The other one you might be familiar if you see my Instagram or my Twitter or just know me in general. So I'm gonna just chalk it up that 2020 belonged to Darth Vader. Because Darth Vader is Leather Daddy, and I love him, and now I'm saying that on camera, but he is in fact the Leather Daddy, and I am so lucky to have read both of these. One of these being a constant in 2020, and one of these kind of filling out 2020, so I kind of want to talk about both. I know I talk about this series a lot, but we're going to talk about it again, because it really is just that special, and I want to talk about it. I don't know what the hell Greg Pak is doing, other than the fact, oh, there he goes. This one tends to flip. Why does this one tend to flip? But Greg Pak, I don't know what the hell he's doing. I don't know who he sold his soul to. There are no writers in the universe right now that understand Darth Vader and Anakin Skywalker the way that Greg Pak does. I'm not kidding when I say that this book has honestly changed the way that I look at the character. It was always really weird growing up because I knew that Darth Vader and Anakin Skywalker were the same person, but it felt very hard to connect the two, especially when we look at the movies, because we look at Darth Vader, who's cold and stoic and in a way emotionless, and then you look at Anakin Skywalker in the prequels, and
this is outrageous. It's unfair.
I need him! No! Liar! You turned her against me! I hate you!
Well, he's not that. So, as a kid and growing up, it was just always so hard to understand that these two characters were the same character, even though I knew that they were the same character. I know Anakin is Darth Vader, but Greg Pak comes in and he seamlessly merges these two characters together. We see a lot of stuff from Anakin's past come back up. We see a lot of throwbacks to the prequel movies, which I love because I am, of course, a prequel shill and a prequel defender. I will fight you on this. But it's really become my favorite comic book of 2020. It's the one book that I look forward to each and every month. So again, Star Wars fan, pick it up. Darth Vader fan, pick it up. If you just want to have your heart ripped out, pick it up, I guess. Now let's talk about the book that I've never talked about on this channel, and that is Darth Vader Dark Visions. I love this series so much, and I read this series when it was coming out in single issues. I have all the single issues, but we've established that I'm not really a single issue fan. I really do like reading things by trade, so of course I picked up the trade from my local library towards the end of the year and decided to reread it, and I can confirm it is still a very, very good book. Because I've never talked about it, let me go into a little bit. So Darth Vader Dark Visions is a 5-issue miniseries published by Marvel Comics, and it is 5 separate stories involving Darth Vader, but from the perspectives of other people. So we get a young kid who watches Darth Vader fall from the sky and fights a giant galactic monster that has been invading his planet, and he sees Darth Vader as sort of this knight in shining armor. In fact, he calls Darth Vader the Black Knight, and he just sits there in awe, the way that I also sit there in awe when I look at Darth Vader, but he sits there in awe as Darth Vader comes through with this magical power, this magical sword, and defeats the monster terrorizing his planet for years. There's another one about a girl who, and I feel like this is written about me a little bit, but a girl who is madly in love with Darth Vader and will do anything and everything to make him love her until she meets her utter demise. Every single story in this book is just perfect, and the way that it's done is just so magical. And I know that when this book came out, there was a lot of controversy behind it with its writer, and a lot of people didn't pick it up because of that. And it's not because of the current writer, it's because of the previous writer. So Chuck Wendig was originally supposed to write the book, but then he kind of said some really nasty, mean things on Twitter, because Chuck Wendig, I'm sorry to say it, but he's not really a great guy. So it ended up going to Greg Hopeless, who wrote the Spider-Woman series, another book that I really, really love. And Greg Hopeless really did write a phenomenal story. The artists in this book, each story is done by an individual artist, and they all have their own unique and wonderful style. And I'm not kidding, man. Even if you don't read Star Wars, if you don't know Star Wars, if you've never seen a Star Wars movie, whatever. Even if you haven't seen a Star Wars movie, I feel like this is a story that you can pick up because we all know Darth Vader. And it's not going into Darth Vader's history. It's not going into his past. It's not a long-running story for the character. It's just stories of the character from the perspective of mundane and normal people. So I feel like it is a book, especially a Star Wars title and a Marvel title, that kind of gets glossed over and is swept under the rug. But let me tell you, when it is a good book, it is a very, very good book. And one of my all-time favorites. So revisiting this in 2020, especially at the peak of my Star Wars trashness, if we can say, it was a really good idea, let me just say. This next title might be my favorite title out of 2020. I don't know. There's something very special about this next title. I definitely think it needs to be nominated for an Eisner because it is just that good. But Stargazer from Mad Cave Studios, I know I just recently talked about it. I also talk about it with Jen every time we do our little comic book streams. But again, more on that later. Stargazer is just a very special book. It is very weird. It is very out there. It is X-Files meets the Stranger Things. And it's a very, very good book. And I just absolutely love the way that this book comes together and the way that it stretches out into just this unknowingness and how each and every issue seems to get weirder and weirder and weirder as time goes along. And I am one of the few lucky ones that actually has gotten to read all of Stargazer, and I can tell you this. It is a very, very good book. It is very interesting and very different. I love everything about this book. I mean, we got Anthony Cleveland and his style and manner of writing. He really does approach horror in a different perspective, horror and sci-fi respectively. So you can kind of see influences from like The Thing in here, but not really, but it's just sci-fi horror. don't know, can't think of any other sci-fi horror other than The Thing right now, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm wearing the hat. I think it's because I'm wearing the hat. So Anthony Cleveland has this very unique style of writing, and then we have Antonio Fuso, who I absolutely love his art. I loved his art on Clan Killers, and it was the main selling point for me picking up this book. We also have the colorist coming in, and I can't think of their name off the top of my head, but the way that they color each and every issue, and it sort of gives you this emotional color palette, if you will, that sets up the tone of each individual issue. Mad Cave Studios rocked it through 2020. Like, if I tell you right now there was a best publisher of 2020, it would either go to Volt Comics or Mad Cave Studios. I kind of want to give it to Mad Cave Studios though, because they really did do this like renaissance rebirth thing with their whole publishing, and they were putting out some banger books. I mean, we're talking Pantomime, we're talking Villainous, Stargazer, Dryfoot, and their lineup for 2021, I'm really, really excited to see what this publisher does. So Mad Cave Studios, Stargazer, you guys got it for me in 2020, 100%. I love Battle Royale. So when I tend to get obsessed with things, I like get really, really obsessed, and I tend to do meticulous research, and I tend to think about them a whole lot, and I don't stop thinking about them a whole lot, and that is exactly what happened with Battle Royale, and more specifically my new husband Kawada, because he is just a dreamboat babe, and I love him, and I would die for him. Literally, Kawada, if you're listening, I would die for you in the Battle Royale. I would do it. Battle Royale is just intense. It is definitely the most intense book that I read all year. And it's like really weird to say, but like, have you ever experienced something? Because I did this with two very different things this year, being Battle Royale and the Death Note anime specifically. But have you ever experienced something where you just wish that you could experience it for the first time over and over again, because it just made you kind of sit there and go, what the fuck is happening? Because that is literally how I felt all through Battle Royale. And it doesn't even matter that I still haven't finished Battle Royale, because I'll admit the ending is not nearly as good as its beginning, but that's okay because it's still the best thing I read in 2020. But Battle Royale is just an intense horror, action, thriller, shit fest, if you will. It is very, very intense. I do not recommend it for everybody, especially because you have students that are killing each other. I mean, it is literally the tale of 60 students thrown into a ring, Hunger Games style completely, and they are killing each other. They are doing mean and nasty things to each other that I will not repeat on this channel, but it can get really, really intense. But it is all done for a reason. Every intense moment in this book is done for a reason. And, man, this book, I literally just can't stop thinking about it. And I wish that I could stick myself in a time machine so I could go back and read it all over again, because Battle Royale both ruined my life and enhanced it 1000%. And if you have not experienced this book, listen, I need you to experience this book. I also read a lot of manga this year, and I think that that is because of Battle Royale. I mean, I read Battle Royale back in, I think, April, and then from there, my manga just kind of spiraled, and I kept trying to find more intense and like really stylistic reads like Battle Royale to kind of fill that void. And I did it here and there, but nothing nearly as comparable to Battle Royale. I need more Battle Royale immediately. I did find out recently that there is a little spin-off manga about the girls in the lighthouse, so I am really excited to check that out. But if you want something intense, if you want something that's going to give you an existential crisis, because that is exactly what I had while reading Battle Royale, this is going to be the book for you. The only bad thing is that it is out of print. So I'm not saying that you should scour the internet for it, but until we get reprintings at an affordable cost, because these books are like $150 a piece now, the internet is your friend. That's all I'm going to say. That being said, do not pirate books. I can't even begin to talk about how amazing 2020 was in terms of single issues, in terms of new series that were coming onto the market, especially when we think about the fact that comics were essentially shut down for a month in that weird March-April time period that lasted 10,000 years. You know, but considering that we saw a lot of delays, considering that we saw a lot of abrupt halts and things like that, 2020 was amazing for comics. It didn't make this list, but like Black Widow, for example, a book that completely came out of left field for me, at least, and ended up being one of my favorite things that I read. Now that I think about it, it probably should have been on this list. So here's my quick 2-second shout out to Black Widow by Elena Casagrande and Kelly Thompson. If you're not reading it, you should be. When I think about new series, though, I really do think about Seven Secrets, because I almost did not pick up this book. And when I think about that, and I think about how much I love it now, and how much I can't wait to read it week to week, and how much I think it is one of my favorite original series that I have read in a long time, maybe since Saga, I just think of what a dumbass I am that I almost missed out on it. Seven Secrets by Tom Taylor and Daniel DiNiccolo is so brainy and weird and out there, and it has some of the best goddamn characters I have seen, again, probably since Saga. Not only that, but Daniel DiNiccolo's art, every single issue makes my jaw drop. I talked about how I read a lot of manga this year, and that is very, very true. But this book feels like a manga, and I'm thinking that maybe that's why I'm drawn to it as much as I am. That and the fact that every character in this book is extremely, extremely hot, and I thank each and every one of you for being as hot as you are. Thank you. But this book, it's gonna pack a lot of heart, and you know, it's kind of weird to read in single issues because I do feel like there's a lot of connecting and moving pieces that I feel like when I read it in trade, I'm gonna be like, oh my god, there it is, it's standing right in front of me, and I'm an idiot and couldn't figure it out. But even so, it's the characters itself that I absolutely love, and the characters that help bring it home for me. You know, we have characters like Eva and Sigurd. We have a villain like Amon, who I absolutely love. We have everybody from the Seven Secrets little council thing, because I think there's an official name, but I can't think of it right now. But each character is filled with such a rich and in-depth history, and this is a universe that I feel like I could want more from it. I feel like it's kind of like a Black Hammer-esque universe, and I don't think we're gonna see that, unfortunately, but it's like a Black Hammer universe where I could see spin-offs. I could see origin stories of different keepers that we're seeing along the side. I could see origins, or I could see spin-off stories of other regions and other countries as they handle themselves as these keepers of these secrets. And I kind of want more from it. I would happily buy more of Seven Secrets. So Seven Secrets, if you have not picked up this book already, when it drops in trade, I need you guys to pick it up, because the way that people freak out about something is killing the children, do not get me wrong, something is killing the children is good, but this is my something is killing the children. I love how action-packed and just downright fun it is, but at the same time extremely heartbreaking, and I feel like this is where Tom Taylor shines as a writer. So again, Seven Secrets, read it, love it, crowded. I literally had this first issue sitting on my shelf forever, and I never even read the first issue, but I never got rid of it either. And then one day I decided to buy the trade. And when I say that I consumed the trade in one single sitting, I consumed the trade in one single sitting. The idea of crowdfunding and kickstarting assassinations should not work. Or maybe it does. I guess it does, because Crowded is a very good book. But I absolutely love the rich and intense world that Christopher Sabella has created. I absolutely love the character designs that we have seen from Rose Stein, because these are some of the best character designs I have seen in comics in a long while. The two main characters being exact opposite tropes, and yet coming together to kind of have a crush on each other and falling in love with each other is my absolute favorite thing in the world, while all the while being on the run in this action-packed field chase, and guns and things happening at every turn, and the fact that it is so witty and has so many fun little millennial quirks and jokes, because I do say that this book is made for a millennial dumb brain like mine, because there are just some really funny moments that when you reread them and you re-look at them, they probably shouldn't be that funny, but to me, they're fucking hilarious. Have I talked about how gay this book is? Because this book is hella gay, and I feel like that's a theme. There are a bunch of gay books on this list, and I am also a little bit gay, or maybe a lot gay, depending on what day it is. But queer content, man, and queer content and books that are like this, that are fun and action-packed, and aren't just coming out stories, I kind of love that. I kind of dig that. Also, I know I've mentioned it, 3 or 4 times now? But dog. the dog. Listen, the dog is giving Jeff the land shark a run for his money, and the dog hereby is my favorite comic book character of all of 2020. It is signed, sealed, delivered. I love Dog. I would die for Dog. Dog is telling you to read this book. Please, just read this book. I can't wait for Volume 2 to come in the mail, and then Volume 3 is coming out soon, and it's just going to be a really, really great, really, really good time. So the last book on this list, this book has literally been sitting on my shelf for like 3 years now, and I never read it because I was really intimidated by it. Sounds really silly to be intimidated by a book, but when Greg Rucka writes books, and Greg Rucka writes as densely as he does, you're going to be a little intimidated sometimes. But in my quarantine isolation, I decided to finally read The Old Guard. And it was kind of because of Charlize Theron being in the Old Guard movie, to which I will say right now, it was actually kind of good. The soundtrack was really bad, but it did do one of my favorite scenes in the book, and I really thank them for that, and it actually was kind of accurate. But The Old Guard was so fucking good, and the fact that it took me this long to read this book, I'm an idiot. So The Old Guard, if you haven't watched the movie on Netflix, if you haven't watched my previous videos where I talked about it, it is 5 soldiers who have lived for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and they can't die. So they wander the earth, and they are mercenaries, and they do good for people. They stop human traffickers. They do this, they do that. And when you think about the Old Guard, when you really, really think about the Old Guard, it really should not be that interesting. But this is the first time that I feel like Greg Rucka really roots into his characters and gives them personality and gives them life. That being said, I do not think Greg Rucka is a bad writer. Greg Rucka has written some of my favorite stories, like Wonder Woman Hikatea and Batwoman Elegy. So that tells you where I stand with Greg Rucka. However, when I look at Greg Rucka's books like Lazarus and Black Magic, these are some of his creator-owned stories. They were just stories that were a little bit too dense that I could not get into. Again, not saying he's a bad writer. I'm just saying that I prefer characters over, I guess, in-depth storytelling. Don't know what that says about me as a person, but I just like really good characters. And The Old Guard gives me really great, good characters. We have Andy, who is our stoic badass. We have Niall, who is this newcomer to the group, and she's kind of learning what it means to live forever, with all of these like quirky little things, like her and Andy shoot each other, and then they get back up, and it's like, what the hell? And it's like, yeah, kid, you can live forever and ever and ever. Don't fall in love because it will kill you. We have Nikki and Joe, who literally are eternal lovers, and they're queer and they're badass, and they have one of the most amazing points in this book that they also carry over into the movie, so I'm so thankful to that. But Old Guard is so absolutely special, and I'm gonna give you guys a little tease for what I've been reading, because last night, as my first book of 2021, I finally read Old Guard Volume 2. And when I say that this book gets even gayer than I thought it was, it gets even gayer. But it also gets even better, and it really does dig into some of the emotions of our characters, especially Andy in particular. So now I have to painfully wait for Volume 3, because I don't know if Image Comics is going to put it out in single issues. Although I hope that they do, but it hasn't been solicited yet. So if it is not, then I'm just gonna have to wait for a 3rd volume, because it seems like Image is doing that a lot lately, where, you know, after the 3rd volume, they kind of say, well, you're getting the OGN format, which I don't mind an OGN format, but it takes longer to get through. The Old Guard. The Old Guard is just, it's one of those, it's very much like the Stephanie Brown book, where it has been sitting on my shelf forever and ever and ever and ever, and I finally got around to reading it. So I guess I can say thank you, coronavirus. I can say thank you, lockdown. I don't know. I'm trying to be positive about this really weird and wacky year that we've had. So, that is it. That's basically my favorite things that I read in 2020. Again, this isn't a best of 2020 because I am terrible at ranking things. I will cry. I will throw up profusely. Please do not put me under that type of stress, but these are the books that really helped carry me through 2020. Each book in this massive, massive stack really did, mean something to me in its own special little way. It made 2020 all that much more bearable. Even when you look at this giant big boy here, which was really depressing and really annoying, but it was my favorite thing that I read anyway. I just feel extremely thankful for comics in 2020. I feel extremely thankful for you guys in 2020 for supporting me, for being with me through this weird and crazy journey. The fact that you made it through 2020, I mean, that's hella important. Like, hella Hello props to you, my dudes, because it was not easy. I, for one, cannot wait to see what comes about in 2021. We've already seen ahead to the next 3 months or so, and I gotta say, comics in 2021, is this gonna be good? We got Future State coming up, and Future State, well, I'm a little wary about Future State, because I've already established that DC Comics were like a bad ex. It's a very toxic boyfriend to me. I'm very excited to see what they have in store for me, but I'm very, very hopeful to 2021, and not just for comics, but for a lot of things, but mostly for comics, if I'm being quite honest with you. And now, it's time for an announcement. I am now regularly doing a very fun live comic show every Sunday with my dear comic book BFFF, Jen, aka Comic Books Will Break Your Heart. So me and Jen do a Sunday live stream every Sunday on her channel at 12 p.m. Eastern time. You can come hang out with us while we talk about comics. It is a show ironically called Casually Comics, and we cover everything from what we've been reading to comic book discussions. I know this next one that's coming up, which will have already passed by the time you guys get this video, but we're going to be talking about all the books we're excited for in 2021. I'm pretty sure we have stuff planned for Future State, and honestly, it's just a really great time because me and Jen have a really great matching personality that feed off of each other, and 90% of the time it's just us thirsting over comic book dudes and ladies, because listen, we love all genders equally in this house. But it's just a lot of fun, and it's a place where I feel like I can hang out and just be casual. I don't have to worry about setting up all this equipment and get all nice. I mean, I get all nice anyway, but you know, it takes a hassle off of me, and I can just kind of chill and hang out and talk comics, you know, so that way when I'm depressed and I can't film, at least you can still hang out with me and hang out with Jen, because she's way better than I am, and we can just talk comics. So that is basically it. I can't even begin to express, I know I've already done it, but how good it feels to be back. You know, I just wish that you were all here with me in the little audience, and we could all just have a good comic time, and then suddenly got very, very weird. But I just, listen, man, there's nothing more that I love than comics. Okay, maybe Mass Effect, maybe Star Wars, but mostly comics. And I just love talking comics. I love getting you guys hyped up for comics, and I feel like it's been way too long, so I'm going to try to do better in 2021 with regularly publishing content and trying to balance both work and comic work, because I love both. But I'm going to hop on out of here. I'm going to start to get ahead on my my 2021 reading list, because I actually did hit my reading goal of 100 books this year, so I'm going to try and bump it up to like 150 this year and be proud of myself, because yeah, comics are great, and I'm getting out of here. So, bye!